shiny faces after the holiday that we all enjoyed, I am sure. I want to mention to the committee today, let's see, we have a quorum. If you are sitting in, and we like for our committee members to sit in on all of our meetings, if they wish to do so, but during any comments or any motions or votes or whatever, only those on the Policy and Legislation Committee will be voting. Want to recognize all of our guests that are here, those of you that are from organizations, and those of you that are just here to listen, and those of you that are here to present, and those people that are online today. Is there any objection to the approval of the committee minutes for June the 3rd, 2025? If not, they stand approved. Is there any objection to the committee agenda for August the 5th? Hearing none, they are approved. We do not have any public comment, I am told. So we will move into our committee items for the day. We have 2 for approval and then 1 for information only. At this time, I entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we enter executive session.
Is there a second? All those approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, likewise. Okay, I deem us.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the waiver request of Lexington School District 1, River Bluff High School.
Is there a second?
Henley, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, likewise. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us today, and good luck to you and that young man.
I want to thank the committee for hearing us and your support. And I know that's not tough, easy decisions to make. We appreciate your audience today, and thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You
Thank you,
also.
too.
Okay, moving along for our next approval, we have proposed amendments to our State Board of Education regulations, charter school restructuring. And I welcome our charter school Office of Choice and Family Engagement, Mika Childs, Director. Mika.
Good morning, members of the committee.
Good morning. Yes.
I so love your company that I just can't stay away. The proposed update is really a kind of a formatting or reorganization update to the way the regulation is structured. The current charter school regulation is one large reg. So if you, of course, go to where we have our regulations, you'll see Article 26, charter schools. It's one regulation that covers everything. The proposed update addresses this. You'll see that the current reg, large span of topics. Of course, definitions, application review guidelines, requirements for virtual charter schools, conditional charter schools. Point here being it's one large regulation all in a charter school space, but covering many topics, connected solely by the fact that they address charter schools. What we are recommending is that we, in anticipation of some upcoming prospective legislative changes, and also just for clarity, update that article, charter schools, and break it into more than one section. Here I'm showing you a different article, Article 23, where you'll see the topic, educational agency relations, and it's broken into multiple regs based on tightly organized topics. Proposing to do the same thing for the charter school reg. In what I've offered, you'll see, as I'm displaying here, the recommended headings and numbers. And so I'll offer a little bit more clarity, and with the spacing of the numbers, it'll prepare for when we need to make updates if there are statutory changes. We won't have to, well, it will bring more clarity and facilitate that process. And so here I'm showing those headings where you'll see, there will be a reg for the review process. There will be a reg for the application process. And so we think that would offer more clarity, and we also think it'll prepare the board for when it's time to make larger updates. And as exciting as that is, that's the regulatory change before you this morning.
So basically, you're bringing before us a change of structure only.
Yes. And to the extent there are any wording changes, is just to add, Roman numerals, so the hierarchy within the regulation is clear. So we're bringing forward more clarity and preparing for statutory updates that we think will be coming forward in coming years.
Questions? Very good.
That just makes total sense.
It
Easier to
certainly
read,
does.
Yes.
And that is a very long structure there anyway. And I think I admire the fact that you have looked at that and more simplify it. That is great. Okay. Any further questions? If not, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the request.
Okay, is there a second?
Preminger,
second.
second.
Preminger seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Motion carries. And now we're going to get some charter school updates for information. So, Ms. Childs, if you'll come back, getting your exercise with us. Thank you.
The purpose of, let me click to, the purpose of this information item is to give the board an opportunity to hear more about accountability in the charter school space. If you'll forgive me, I'll click through to find where I am, but I'll go ahead and begin speaking because I do want to be mindful of time. When you're looking at accountability with charter schools, there's lots of discussion about, well, what does that entail? What I want to share with you today is that there are a couple of primary forms of accountability that charter schools face. One, charter schools, I'm not sure, I don't want to click through everyone's presentation, to highlight is the forms of accountability that charter schools face. As schools of choice, one primary form of
Mika, can I ask you to move the microphone just a little closer to you?
Okay.
You have that nice, soft-spoken voice.
The ultimate form of accountability that charter schools face is going to be through the ability of parents to choose the school. So we are very aware of that accountability. Another form of accountability that rests with charter schools is through the state accountability system. In the state accountability system, charter schools that perform at the lowest rating on the state report card system for 3 years in a row are subject to automatic closure. And so while low performance among traditional schools does bear with it a level of accountability, charter schools are unique in that failure to perform or low performance does lead to an immediate action after multiple years of consecutive low performance. The South Carolina Department of Education works with authorizers, because these are authorizer practices. We work with authorizers to hold charter schools accountable, but largely that function does rest with authorizers. Here today, what I would have walked you through was at the state level, what are some things that we look at in terms of charter school performance? One of the things you have seen is the state report cards. Charter schools receive report cards for each level at which they educate. And so for that reason, we have more than 100 charter schools, but you'll find that we have more than 100 actual report cards issued. The reason being, if you have a charter school that's operating at the K-12 level, they'll receive a report card at the elementary level, at the middle school level, and at the high school level. And they are held accountable for each of those report cards. They're subject to conversation, subject of discussion around that, but at a very high level, that is what we see with those charter schools. Another form of accountability we see with charter schools is our monitoring performance broken down, focus on different things such as college and career readiness. And for your benefit, I'll make sure in the slide deck, I'll share it with you so that you'll see these points. For example, one of the things we do monitor is how well are charter schools performing with college and career readiness in math? How well they perform with college and career readiness in English? And so these are things that we are able to monitor and then communicate, work with the authorizers on steps that they take to improve performance. Mainly at the state level, the point of emphasis is the state looks at the state report cards. However, those are kind of looking back to a previous year of performance. Authorizers, they are working with schools in real time. And that being the case, we also think that level of accountability, academic accountability, is important for you to learn more about. And that's why for this presentation, I actually invited each of the authorizers, each of the state level authorizers to have time to share with you steps they take to improve academic performance. And so a difference in the accountability that the state offers, we are relying on the state system, which largely looks at previous years of performance. Whereas authorizers, they use that information, of course, but they have each some unique approaches they take to hold schools accountable. And so with that,
Mika, before you introduce, can I ask a question?
yes.
In the process of the charter school legislation, does it speak to let's just say an authorizer closes a charter school due to non-performance after the 3, as you've spoken. Is there anything in there that relates to that charter school going to another authorizer?
Yes, the state law guards against that. And
Okay.
so if a charter school is facing revocation from revocation of their charter or non-renewal, they are not able to just preemptively transfer. And so the mechanisms around that are largely at the authorizer level. First, the law does not allow it. But secondly, the authorizers are in communication with one another. In order for a charter school to transfer, there's a conversation that takes place with the charter school and their original authorizer, and then any receiving authorizer. And so the rescinding authorizer would have to agree to release them, and they are going to hold them accountable, knowing they're facing academic performance issues, knowing they're facing revocation or non-renewal. And so there are provisions in place at the authorizer level that will guard against them releasing a charter school. And then on the receiving level, that's another place where a receiving authorizer is in communication with their colleague to know, well, is this school really eligible to transfer?
Okay. And are we going to meet the authorizers now?
We are, or you are.
Okay, good.
Madam Chair, I
Okay.
have a question.
Yeah.
Mika, are charter school administrators required to have administrator certification?
Yes, they have a level of training they have to receive. One of the things that we are working with authorizers to update is, so there's aspects of leading a charter school that's similar to what any school principal will face. However, there are aspects of leading a charter school that are very different. And so, yes, they have requirements. There are places where they have more flexibility, but one of the ways we are trying to improve what we offer is to provide them with training, particularly in business practices and other things that will be unique to charter schools.
So if they don't have the administrator certification, as some do not, what happens? Who is,
Well, their
steps
charter
in.
board would make the hiring decision about who will lead the school. And so charter schools do have some flexibility beyond what a traditional school has. That's the nature of the charter school space. But in terms of licensure requirements, there are lots of decisions that rest with that local board.
thank you.
Can I
Yes.
tag on to what Ms. Allison was asking just a minute? So do I understand you to say that even though a charter has had 3 consecutive years of low performance and would close, they still have the flexibility of moving to another?
No, they do not.
Okay, so if after 3 years, they cannot move to another,
Well, after 3 years, they would face automatic closure. And so now that's not an immediate shutter doors date. There's a transition, a closure process that the authorizer would oversee. But that is the point there is there's a high level of accountability if a school is in the unfortunate position of performing at that lowest level 3 consecutive years.
so that transfer would have to happen before that 3rd year of low performance?
Yes, and so you have, those are 2 separate kind of processes, but yes, if it's, the transfer process is not designed to allow a school to try to avoid accountability.
Okay.
Okay.
To this point, do we have any charter schools that, because of low performing, have closed?
Not that I'm aware of. We have some that have, faced year 2. Now, one of the things that has happened in our accountability system is, we've had major changes in our accountability system. And so that does affect both with traditional schools and charter schools, what accountability comes down if a school is performing at the lowest level. And so what we as an agency do is we monitor schools to see, okay, well, this charter school is in the 1st year or in the 2nd year. When we have faced schools that were in that 2nd year and we're engaging in conversation with them, they turn things around. And we've seen authorizers come to the table and they have conversations with the board on changes in leadership, changes in instructional practices. It's kind of an all hands on deck. But one of the things you will see is the authorizers, they don't wait until a school is facing that year 1, 2. Rather, what the authorizers do is they engage with the charter schools proactively. Okay.
Well, we're anxious to meet them.
Yes.
We're anxious to meet them.
Tara, will we be able to get that loaded or should we? I sent it to you. Okay. Are you okay starting or do you want to wait and see if they're ready? Okay. So our first authorizer is with the Public Charter School District. Again, these are all statewide authorizers. I'm introducing Dr. John Payne. They're being very flexible in our getting the presentation loaded, but he will begin kind of explaining to you things that the Public Charter School District does. Okay?
Very good. Dr. Payne, welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Board members, good morning. I'm John Payne. I'm the Deputy Superintendent with the Public Charter School District, and I'm pleased to talk with you this morning about charter accountability. At the Public Charter District, we take accountability very seriously, particularly with respect to the one goal of the Charter Act, and that is namely closing the achievement gap between high-performing and low-performing students. We're also committed to putting kids first in all that we say and do. As I imagine with my colleagues that you'll hear from this morning, our schools are public schools and are open to all students contingent upon space availability. Our schools are held accountable by the state as each one, as Mika shared, receives 1 or more report cards depending upon what grade band or bands each school offers. Right now in the Public Charter School District, we have 45 operational schools serving a little over 22,000 students throughout South Carolina. Since 2020, we've experienced a 38% growth in the number of children enrolled in our schools, significantly so for children of poverty as well as children with disability. In specific, we've seen an increase of 63% growth of our children with disabilities, and we think that parents are recognizing and now understanding the public choice that's available to them. And we certainly welcome those families to our schools. Just as with other schools, our schools and our districts are monitored by the State Department of Education and fulfill all the same data reporting requirements as any other schools. But as they say, when you watch an infomercials, wait, I'm not done yet. In addition to that, the Charter Act contemplates new forms of accountability, and I'm proud of the work that we've done to scale our work up with accountability. The result of our work is called the AFO Index, Academics, Finance, and Operations, as we believe the autonomy granted to public charter schools comes with expectations for accountability in these areas. We convened a stakeholder work group in 2022 and 2023 to develop this framework, which included recommendations from both the OIG as well as the LAC reports on the district. We revisited it in 2023 to ensure that it was aligned completely with the Charter Act, and then in June of last year, 24, we deployed it, and then this past June we issued that again the second year for our schools. The AFO ensures that we have a standardized way of evaluating the performance of schools which extends beyond academics. It focuses on key areas of the Charter Act that are critical for charter school success. Within each section of the AFO, we examine academic performance, financial health, and operational excellence. Some of the key metrics in this framework relate to the charter goals. So in the application, in the charter schools have to indicate and write the goals for which that specific charter was created, and then we review those annually to determine the progress in meeting those goals. Our schools must complete and submit an annual report each year that outlines the progress they are making. Thank you, Mika. In meeting those goals, so we examine those. We also examine subgroup performance, particularly for pupils of poverty and students with disabilities. And we also ensure that our school complies with the Act by having no more than 25% of non-certified staff or less if the charters, if it's specified in the school's charter. We also examine the financial health through a variety of metrics, and based upon those metrics, their financial risk rating. We also examine their operational health. As you probably know, charter schools must be established as 501c3 organizations that must comply with state FOIA requirements. We also examine board training required by the Act, as well as federal program compliance, such as IDEA and Title I, which we put those in tier models for our schools. Through these collective measures, we can triage and support our schools in real time in particular areas that they struggle or are experiencing, and sometimes more broadly when academics, finances, and operations are below the requirements of their charter and the Charter Act. Just as with any school, we try to support our schools proactively so that we see healthy, prosperous schools. When that does not happen, however, we are committed to exercising our authority under the Act through stages of intervention. We have developed stages of intervention of sanctions that range from notices concern all the way to notices of intent to revoke the charter, depending upon the issue, the severity, and the collaborative nature of the issue going on. Issuing these notices is well reviewed by our team, and we use these only when necessary. We prefer to be proactive with our schools, starting first with applications. The first way to ensure we are authorizing high-quality schools is through a robust application review process. Since 2020, we've approved at the Public Charter School District roughly 50% of the applications that we have received. When our schools begin, we work to support them in that planning year and in that first year, but we also respect their autonomy when they uphold their commitments to their charter and, most importantly, to the students we serve. So with that, Madam Chair, we appreciate the opportunity to address you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all may have.
Thank you so much. And if okay with you and this board, we'll hear from the other two. And then if we have any questions of any of them, we'll be glad to ask.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next,
And next, we have the Charter Institute at Erskine.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Cameron Runyon with the Charter Institute at Erskine, Superintendent. It's a joy to be with you. I was sharing with Ms. Childs. I've been doing this for 8 years. This is the first time I've ever had the honor of standing here. And I've got with me some colleagues this morning, Mr. Mike Sinclair, who is one of our superintendents of schools, overseeing the portfolio, part of the portfolio across the state of South Carolina, and Ms. Naomi Morgan, who is our Chief of Accountability and School Performance. And also want to thank the other authorizers for being here as well. It's great to be with them. I just want to give you very short, high level, kind of the Erskine meta-narrative, because every authorizer is different. That's the really neat thing about the charter sector, is that each of these three kind of has their own personality and their own emphasis points. Charter Institute at Erskine, of course, is affiliated with Historic Erskine College in Abbeville County. We all know the history of Abbeville County and our communities of poverty across the state of South Carolina. And so when the Charter Institute was formed, part of the big part of the DNA of the Charter Institute and Erskine College's heart behind this was to reach into our areas of greatest need across the state of South Carolina. So that's really become the big emphasis point. We certainly operate in other areas as well, but our real emphasis point is on the areas of greatest need. And in particular, we have a huge emphasis point on what is known as the I-95 corridor, colloquially the corridor of shame, or as we are working to rename it, the corridor of success here in South Carolina. And to that end, the Charter Institute, through our board, has invested significant resources, nearly $2 million from fund balance, into starting and enabling schools that are already succeeding inside the I-95 corridor to flourish, expand, and initiate operations there. And so whether you're down in Jasper County, where we have Royal Live Oaks, which is a nationally acclaimed school, or up to Walterboro with our new Libertas Academy, or up into Florence with Virtus Academy, we have a big commitment to the I-95 corridor. But it's not just a brick and mortar story, and I think that's what we see across the state of South Carolina, is that there was a lot of talk about, well, what's our local school doing? What's this brick and mortar school doing? Are we opening schools in the corridor? And years ago, when I was testifying before the Senate, I got a question from a senator: why don't y'all open more schools in the I-95 corridor? We don't have kids in that. We don't have schools in the I-95 corridor. And it just so happened that day that I had a heat map with me of our brick and mortar schools across the state of South Carolina. And there weren't a lot of them in the I-95 corridor at that time. But I also had a heat map of our virtual schools inside the I-95 corridor. And when you look at that heat map, that whole corridor just opens up with activity, because there are thousands upon thousands. As a matter of fact, around 5,000 as of today, and growing, children that are enrolled in our virtual schools inside the I-95 corridor. And so whether it is our innovative Heron Academy, which is the state's only alternative education campus, helping the most alternative education virtual campus, helping the children that this is kind of their last stop a lot of times for them, working with the young mothers that have had children that have had to drop out of school, or working with the kid that brought a gun to school and found himself incarcerated and couldn't get into any other school because they don't have to take them, and nor would they. But in a virtual environment, we can do that. What is I think largely unknown about the virtual schools is that the average poverty weighting of an Erskine virtual school, and we have about 16,000 children in our virtual programs, the average poverty weighting of those schools is 70%. 70% poverty in a virtual environment. And a lot of these kids are invisible until you do, as Chairman Hembry did this year, and you go to a graduation and you see thousands upon thousands of families filling the Colonial Life Arena, and you realize these are real kids. These are real families that are getting an opportunity and a hope across the state of South Carolina. So, again, I want to say that's kind of the Erskine meta-narrative. I promised I'd be brief. It's a joy to serve the children of South Carolina with all of you. Thank you for your service. You give a lot of time, Chair Lady. You have given many, many years to this state and to the children, and so we want to thank you for your continuing service. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Mike Sinclair and Ms. Naomi Morgan. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Superintendent Runyon. Just to introduce myself, my name is Mike Sinclair. I'm one of the superintendent of schools for the Charter Institute at Erskine. And one of the beauties of the Charter Institute at Erskine is As an organization, we really value experience in traditional schools and in charter schools. This is my 20th year in charter schools. In 2006, I was fortunate enough to open Brazier Middle College, which is in southern Greenville County. My counterpart, who is Dr. Missy Brakefield from Rock Hill, who is the other superintendent of schools, spent her full career in traditional districts. So together, we're able to make sure that we're blending expertise from both sides of that piece. So what you're looking at on this slide is our structure of accountability. So it's rooted in the statute. So what specifically are authorizers required to hold schools accountable for? So you can see that. I won't go through all 6 in detail there, but you can see the 6 areas. It's titled the Actions, Results, Commitment, and Supports, the ARCs. Every 3 years, we do a full deep dive through the ARCs on how are schools doing in all 6 of those. Now, every year we have what we call a comprehensive school snapshot. So it is more of a high level, more of a general. If we see problems, then we would interject with that school in that year. It's not that they get 3 years off. It's schools need to be able to look at trend data. We need to be able to look at trend data. If we get into every year, looking at all of those, then we can spend more time looking in the weeds, looking at the data, than actually trying to help these schools. The one part of our ARCs structure that I want to point out is the word supports. Authorizers are not required to provide support to schools. You're there to hold them accountable. That's really where that level is. But having led a charter school for 16 years and being in the sector for that whole time, as schools have developed since 2006, you see the if not us, then who? These charter schools are trying to be innovative. They're trying to plug into areas of our state that typically have not had a lot of school choice. The problem then lies in there's not as much depth that a district office can provide. So you realize, I tell the funny story of the first day at my charter school, and I opened in 2006, someone comes to me and says, Mr. Sinclair, the toilet stopped up. And I tried to grab my walkie-talkie and call maintenance until I realized the only voice on the other side of that radio was mine. So I was now maintenance. So everything falls on that charter leader, kind of going back to Dr. Child's comments about a charter leader does need to understand the education model and requirements, but there's a whole lot more because you are now an entrepreneurial business leader of a multi-million-dollar corporation. There's a lot more involved in that role. So supports is really where we dive in to make sure that we are looking at how to support our schools. So in here you see these bullet points. These are just high-level data meetings with school leaders. We want to make sure that school leaders have authentic data, and Ms. Morgan's going to come up and talk just a minute about that as well. But last year we had 51 meetings with our school leaders and their admin team, giving them a deep dive into how their students are doing, how their teachers are doing. What does that trend data look like? The next bullet, in-person and virtual professional developments. We provided over 30 professional developments, and that was us. We also partnered to help them get plugged in other places. So why is that important? It's important because a lot of these individual schools cannot create the professional developments themselves. They just don't have the depth. They don't have the experience to write curriculum or get into standards analysis or look at course sequencing, all that. To give you a great example, we talked about, Superintendent Runyon talked about 16,000 virtual school students. Well, when we dive into the virtual school data, you'll see that they often struggle in math. So as an institute, we had to look at our own professional development. We then became very active in Digital Learning Collaborative, which is kind of the national think tank for digital learning. So we joined so that we could learn in that process along with some of the schools. So last year we brought in an expert to spend the whole year, met with him multiple times, and what we thought was a core issue was, from looking at the data, was student engagement. You know, students are virtual, they're in their homes, are they really engaged? So we spent the year really diving into student engagement. What we found at the end of the year when we start doing more analysis is the students were engaged, the teachers needed support really looking at interpreting standards and sequencing their instruction. So you can get them engaged, but if they're not engaged in the right sequencing, then that's your disconnect. So this year, we brought it back in-house, and everything that we're doing with our virtual schools, they have their own PD track in math, just math. as part of our Global Math Summit. I'd love to share more about that in another. I know it's not on the agenda today, but really look at that, is going through these course sequencing. And it's perfect because now the state math standards have changed, the course sequencing's changed. So just to give you, we could look at the data and then say, you better get this fixed, you're going to be closed. Or we could look at the data and say, what can we do to maximize your capacity in that school? And that's really what we've committed ourselves to doing. So we have an entire school improvement team headed by Ms. Heather Holliday, who had knee surgery, so she can't be here today. But Ms. Morgan, you want to talk a little bit about some of the monitoring?
Yes, absolutely. As Mr. Sinclair shared, we do provide a lot of different supports to our schools. So I just want to highlight a couple of them. Throughout the year, we monitor the school's formative assessment results, looking at projected proficiency levels, student growth, academic achievement, and we ensure that the schools know how to access and utilize that data to inform their instruction and continuous improvement areas, because that's a critical piece for them to make progress. We also provide interactive dashboards based on not only formative assessment results, but state summative assessment results and high school outcomes, like on track to graduate and college or career readiness. Those dashboards allow the schools to dig into the data whenever they want to, with or without us. They can look at summary level data, they can look at grade level information, but they can actually then drill down to student level data, because we know that that's where the rubber hits the road within our classrooms and within our educational environments. In addition to those two efforts, we also provide school report card projections throughout the year. The Education Oversight Committee developed a wonderful tool where you can plug in numbers as you go throughout the year to say, okay, if this is the level of achievement that I reach, or here are my projected proficiency results, what does that translate to on the school report card? So we do that in the winter, we do it again in the spring, and then we kind of do it all throughout the summer as we get finalized data from the Department of Education. And that way there are no surprises. I do think that the winter projections we provide are probably the most impactful, because that's the moment that they still have time to take action and make any adjustments that they need to impact student learning and to impact those results. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And kind of wrapping up this slide here with the continuous improvement plans, that's really partnering with the State Department. You know, some of the lower performing schools, the TSI and the CSI schools, making sure that we're partnering with the coaches that the state is providing in the schools on that. So we don't tell them it's a good or a bad plan or approve it. That is a state level decision, accountability piece there. But we do try to review it with them, because we want to make sure they're maximizing the funding they have. They maximize the resources they have. So we do try to review and coach them through that and provide that individual school supports. So just as we want our schools to act in a certain way with their students' individual plans, we want to make sure we're mirroring that with them, so that we're modeling what we expect them to do with their students. Here's an example of one of our online schools, Odyssey Online. You can see in 2022, their graduation rate was 63.5, 28.7% were college and career ready. Able to walk through them. We actually helped them walk through their curriculum, and they changed providers in their curriculum, because what they found, and they didn't realize it, was in their classrooms, they were paying someone to teach some of them, and they had students from multiple states. So they were not teaching just South Carolina standards, they were chasing standards. So we were able to tie them in, and you can see not the year we're waiting right now, but prior year was 83% graduation rate, and they're up to 71.4, and they got off the CSI designation list. Royal Live Oaks is in Jasper County. They have 74% poverty students. They have outperformed. If you look at the last two bullets under 2024 performance from last year, they were all the way up to achieving excellent student progress rating, and they were good on their elementary and high school divisions, and they were the first charter school to be named to a school to watch by the National Forum of Accelerated Middle Grades Reform. This is in Jasper County. They do a great job. You may have heard of Dr. Karen Wicks. She and her husband founded that school and do a fantastic job there. So just a couple of examples.
So how many brick and mortar schools do you have?
We have 6 virtual, so we have 22 brick and mortar schools. Okay. Sorry, I had to do backwards math there.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
I'm Donna Manning. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Authorization and School Development with the Limestone Charter Association. I think you'll hear some similar themes and concepts that we do also at Limestone Charter Association. Currently, we have 17 schools operational with Limestone, and we have 11 schools in the pipeline to open next year. So that's about 8,500 students this year with an additional approximately 3,000 students next year. Again, so we do a similar performance framework analysis of our schools. We look at the big buckets of academic, operational, financial, and governance, regulatory, and compliance. And those data points give us a holistic review to analyze our school's performance, looking at past data and real-time data. When we break those big buckets down, you can see within the academics performance metrics, we have several indicators that we look at. We look at their achievement, we look at growth, we look at graduation rates, college and career readiness, English language learners, and subgroup performance. Again, all of those things that the Charter Act would like the authorizer to look at and wants those schools to succeed at. We then take a deeper look at the operational metrics. We look at student enrollment, because with charter schools, if you don't have students, you're not generating funds and you can't keep your school opening. So if you don't have the student enrollment, which also is a reflection on the need or the demand in the area. If you have low student enrollment, that's the community telling you that that school's not really needed. We look at attendance rates, because we all know whether students are present and engaged. That gives a outcome in performance. We look at the teacher and staff certifications. So speaking about the law allowing the 25%, we also look at other staff member certifications as well. And we also ensure that they are providing services and compliant with all federal and state regulations. Finances, making sure they are financially viable. They look at their audit results, and we look at per pupil cost expenditure, making sure that they are getting the bang for their buck. And then the last bucket that we look at is compliance and governance. So we look at how the boards govern those schools. Are they meeting the compliance things? There's the new streaming rules that are coming out, so we're informing our boards of that and getting them up to date. Have they gone through their trainings? Are they doing all of the things that's applicable to FOIA? And are they meeting compliance? So our philosophy at Limestone is we really take a partnership aspect to this. Yes, as an authorizer, I could sit here and check all these boxes and tell the schools what they're doing wrong, and we have the authority to close them down if we choose to. But we like to look at it from a partnership perspective about building capacity. So some of the things that you've heard today, we too offer professional development. We also track data. We have a data dashboard that our schools have access that can predict where they will be in the spring with their outcomes, and it gives them some real-time data so they can be actionable. But we really hone in on that partnership, because we believe if we just sit there and, say all the wrong things, who's impacted? It's the students. So we really believe in building capacity with our schools. If not, if something is awry and things are not where they need to be, obviously we have a level of protocol that we address with our schools. It may be an official notice. Hey, this isn't right, fix it. Tell us how you're going to fix it, when is it going to be done? And that can escalate all the way up to a corrective action plan, which is a specific plan, heavily monitored, and then in a last case resort, we can move towards revocation and closure if those particular situations don't resolve themselves. Some of our results from the last year for report card: 3 excellent schools, 2 good, 3 average, 1 below average, and 1 unset. I will say that 1 unset school is in a district that school reopened where the district had consolidated, and it was a community grassroots effort. So they were, I think, 1 point away from not being on that unsat list, so they are making good gains there. And then we also have our transfer schools that have switched over from other authorizers to us. Okay, that's it for us.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you again, you have 17 schools now, and you have 11 schools in the pipeline.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you still housed as an authorizer at Limestone?
Yes, so the proviso was passed, which gave Limestone Charter Association, even though the university closed down, it allowed Limestone Charter Association to have 12 months of a runway to do that closure protocol. And according to that proviso, those schools have until December 15th to select a new authorizer, and then we will notify the State Department by the 31st of December where those schools would be going.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Manning.
So the 11 that are supposed to open next year, they have to get a new sponsor?
They'll be able to select from a list. They all have contracts. They were approved. They all have contracts. They have a charter to take with them, and it'll be up to their boards to determine where they want to go next.
Okay. Very informative. Thank you, Ms. Manning. Mika, very informative. Do any of you have any questions of any of our authorizers? Mr. Richardson? Oh, Mika? Yes, sir. Go ahead. Is your mic on? Thank you.
David was supposed to remind me to do that. Mika, you and I have talked several times. Won't call out any names or anything, but did I understand you to say that if an authorizer is a local school district, and that local school district has a problem with a charter school, that charter school, if they're underperforming and they are turned down by, or they want to be eliminated by the local school district, now they cannot go to another, because we've been told several times on a particular school, well, that's fine, you can shut us down and we're just going to go to one of the other schools, we're going to go to Erskine, or we're going to go to Limestone, or I think another option was they're going to go to the state charter school association. What is the answer?
So with a transfer, the transferring school has to effectively be released by their original authorizer and received by the new authorizer. And so first is not a unilateral decision. Second, when you're getting into low performance, the automatic closure provision speaks to a school consecutive years at the lowest level. And so that also is a factor. And so you may have, so I would have to know, I think I know which school you're talking about, but yeah, I would have to know specifically, were they at the lowest level, consecutive years? Then that's when the automatic closure provision is at play. But if you're but when you're looking at that transfer process, like all these authorizers, I wasn't looking, they probably kind of perked up when you said, they said they're just going to transfer over. It's not a unilateral process. That school would have to be released by the local authorizer in this case, and there are provisions within the law that will guide that authorizer in, even allowing that transfer if they know this school is entering a non-renewal or revocation or in corrective action. And so those are all factors. I will also point out, today you heard from statewide authorizers. The agency is continuing to reach out and building relationships with the local authorizers. And so there are things that are a little different at the local level, but this thing that you're addressing, transferring because the local authorizer, as you're describing it, is beginning to take accountability steps to hold that school accountable for academic performance, transferring just for academic performance, again, is not a unilateral process. And so I don't see where a school would just be able to transfer because now the local authorizer is holding them accountable. There's going to be more to it than that. Some of the things you were describing, there's just an opportunity for the local authorizer to help that school understand a bit more clearly what the practices are. But some of what they just described is not true to law.
Okay.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Thank you, Mika. Have another question? Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about whether the charter schools are held, I mean, I know they're on the same report card system, but are they held accountable as much as regular public schools? Or
I
are the
love
standards
that.
higher, or are they about the same, or lower?
That question, honestly, that question is a bit complicated in the sense that, yes, they are the same in that they are public schools, state accountability system comes to bear, right? But I would also argue that the accountability they face as schools of choice, I think that is another form of accountability that I would also factor in, and then also the automatic closure provision. And I don't want to emphasize that. I don't want it to be the main thing you walk away with viewing as the measure of accountability for charter schools. I think more importantly, as schools of choice, you have parents who are actively selecting a school. And that's happening in many different ways in South Carolina, but specifically within a charter school space, a parent making that selection is very important. That brings with it a level of accountability that we can't take for granted. It's an important part of the options that we are offering children all across the state. But I also want to emphasize that they also, as public schools, face accountability through the state accountability system. There are some nuances because they're charters, but they are facing the accountability that, I mean, you heard one person, I believe Ms. Manning was speaking to, you know, if their enrollment levels aren't high enough. That's a level of accountability, a pressure that they face that is important to education choice. And so I want to be careful and not say it's more or worse or a higher level or higher standard. Rather, I want to make sure, as much as possible, the Department of Education is bringing clarity to the board's understanding of the accountability measures in place in the charter school sector.
Well, you would think that a parent that chose to send their kid to a charter school did so because they think they're going to get a better education than they were getting in public school.
Well, and charter schools are public schools, but I also will say you have the. It's also important to understand parents make choices for many reasons. Some are choosing based on academics. Some are making choices based on the climate or the environment of the school. Some are pushed out in some ways or pulled out, meaning they are actively seeking something, or in some instances, I mean, there are parents who are choosing because there's something going on in the school their child is zoned for, and they just need a different environment. So there's some that are choosing schools that focus more on civic engagement, or there's just a whole host of reasons why parents make choices. What we are focused on is providing an array of options for parents to choose from, but then also making sure they understand the accountability measures that are in place, making sure they understand the options that are available to them. And so with our state accountability system on the academic side, that's focused on academics and some other measures, but there are lots of reasons why parents choose a particular charter school over another school option.
I think Dr. Mathis has a question, please.
I do, and one is for John at the charter school, and one is Cameron for Erskine. So, John, you had mentioned in your presentation about special ed students, and I know a lot of the schools, just by their nature, are small. So, so if a parent is enrolling a student with special ed needs, and you don't have that particular offering, how do y'all handle that?
So there are those instances where we do have smaller schools, generally speaking. And what we found in talking just anecdotally with a lot of our parents is they want that. They're smaller classrooms. They have more access to teachers. Many of our schools have a full-time teacher and a parapro in every classroom. So it just really depends. There are some instances, so we are open to all students. As the public charter school district, any child that's of school age are welcomed in our school. So, and that includes all children with disabilities, regardless of what their condition or their disability may be. Our schools are expected to offer a continuum of services for all children, so even those that have the most significant cognitive impairment. And when they don't, we work with them to ensure that they have all the things in place to serve those children. Now, with respect to virtual, obviously that takes a little different conversation because not all children students with disabilities or otherwise, is, that's appropriate for. But certainly in terms of generally supporting students with disabilities, we have a full district team that supports just like any traditional school district does in supporting their schools.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Cameron.
Madam Chair.
I was going to ask
Cameron,
Cameron,
come
yeah. I'm glad you reminded me about Erskine being in Abbeville. I knew that, but I had forgotten about the lawsuit.
The
And
Abbeville
made that
13.
yeah. I'm glad you made that connection. So with that and the schools that you're opening in the corridor, wherever, do you go by lottery? How are the students selected for those schools? Is it a lottery? Everybody's
They're open
eligible?
enrollment, and then
Okay.
if they max out, then it would go to a lottery.
Okay, so if you have the room and you apply, you can come.
If there's the room and you apply, you're in.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so if you don't have seating capacity, then you go to a lottery.
To a
system.
lottery, yes, sir.
Okay. I had forgotten about the Abbeville lawsuit. Thank you for that reminder.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Stay right there
Okay,
just
Ma-
1 minute, because I had a question about that same thing. When you talk about the corridor of shame, we're talking about an extremely impoverished area. I find it interesting, it's not a question, it's just interesting, that's where 16,000 students are receiving their education virtually.
About 5,000.
5,000.
About 5,000. And 16,000 is the students with us statewide,
Right.
and about 5,000 inside the I-95 corridor specifically.
5,000.
Yes,
Then
ma'am.
let's go with 5,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Do they all have access to it?
They,
Do
they,
you provide the access?
if they aren't able, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Great question. If the family is not able, they don't have internet, if they don't have a computer, then that's something that would be provided for them. They'll actually send them a hotspot so that they can get online. So that's how it's done. Yes, ma'am.
I just see that as almost talking about the special education students being able to do that virtually, but then in the same, thinking about the support that they have and the issues that those children probably deal with, and getting
Yes.
all of their education virtually.
There's a lot of wraparound services that have to come with those kids, and we're very blessed, I think, to have such a mature group of virtual schools that have worked for many years to make sure that we can deliver the services in those environments that would need to be delivered. You may recall during COVID, it was actually the Institute Virtual Schools that worked with SCASA, and we actually provided all the training to the traditional districts around the state, just because over years they had developed the expertise to deliver special education services in a virtual environment. So, yes, ma'am.
Well, Mika, thank you so much for thank you, Cameron.
Madam Chair.
Thank you for bringing these authorizers to us
Madam
today.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Following up on Dr. Matthews, this question is for Dr. Payne. First of all, thank you all for the information that you shared with us. Dr. Payne, what percentage, if you could estimate, what percentage of your students are students with disabilities?
So right now, we are roughly about 18% of our students are students with disabilities. In terms of pupils in poverty, we have about 58, 59% of our students are pupils in poverty, which is very close to the state. And then in terms of race, ethnicity, we have primarily over 50% of our students are students of color.
Okay, and did you mention that 25% of your certified staff can be non-certified?
Yes, ma'am. That is a provision of the Charter Act that will allow those individuals to be non-certified. However, they must hold a bachelor's degree in the content area for which they're going to teach.
Okay, and so your students with disabilities, those students are servers with certified staff?
Yes, ma'am. So all children with disabilities receive their services through certified special education faculty.
Any
And
other
just to
discussion
comment-
or
I got
question?
one more question, please.
Yes, sir.
Are there any circumstances or provisions for a charter school being turned back over to the local school district?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of any provisions. There's nothing in the Charter Act that contemplates any of that. It's all,
Wouldn't that be better than closure?
in many ways, it really depends on the nature of the closure, quite frankly. So, for example, we just closed a school, regrettably, this past year And the reason why it was a great school, it had a lot of promise to it, but regrettably, the location they wound up at was just not the location, and they were never able to get the enrollment for the students to come into the schools. And if you don't have the students, as one of my colleagues was talking about in terms of accountability, I mean, that is, because you want to be able to demonstrate to parents that this is a great choice. It's a public choice. And so because they had such low enrollment, they were not going to be sustainable. And as a result, we had to close them.
I'm just curious about the funding that goes to charter school for the administration of it, not at the local level, but at the state level. Does the funding of that a percentage of what the schools get? Is that the way you're funded?
Yes, sir. So we receive funds as a district just like any other school district. The difference is we retain 2% for our administrative district operations, 2%, and then the 98% flows directly through to our schools.
So what you mind sharing the size of your budget?
I don't remember the total budget, but that would be something I can get with our CFO and be happy to do a touchback with you on that.
Okay, no further discussion. Thank you, authorizers. Thank you, Mika, for bringing them here today. It's great to hear from you, and I will say this, if any further members of the board have questions and need answers to that, we will certainly get in touch with you. But thank you for making the trip. Thank you for what you do in serving our children and our parents. Okay, at this time, for a little cleanup on our agenda, I would like to ask for approval of the Policy and Legislation Committee's agenda that we have just gone through for September the 2nd, but I need to get that into the minutes. So do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, so moved. Grimminger?
Is there a second?
Mathis, second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed likewise? Okay. Don't believe there's any further business to be taken up, so is there any objection to approving the agenda as it was presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Is there any other business to come before the P&L committee? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Do I hear a motion?
Well, then I guess it's 1 and 2.
Okay, on the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Grimminger, second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed likewise. Thank you. We stand adjourned.